but there has been a statement come out. Let's take a look at the statement. So, the statement says, he told the weekly Dartscast, which, by the way, highly recommended. Excellent podcast there. The best podcast in darts at the moment. So go check the weekly Dartscast out.
Hello and welcome to an episode of the weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and with me as always, Darts statistician Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine as spring has rolled into DC. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Yeah, the sun's been out a little bit here in Stowmarket the last few days, so can't complain with that. And can you believe we're almost at the end of March, the first quarter of 2022, but we've got lots coming up, lots to bring you over the next few weeks. You're going to hear from Damon Heta and Mac Elkin on this show, but let's get into our look back on the weekend just gone in Barnsley. The ProTour was back, 2 Players Championship events, and Damon Heta, one of our guests on the show, back in the winner's circle in the PDC, winning Saturday's Players Championship event. And we come to our first of 2 questions of the week. Where will Damon Heta be ranked at the end of this season? What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, I guess it's as good time as ever for me to admit I was wrong, because we had a similar question to this. I can't remember exactly when last year, but at some point near the middle of the season, and I think it might have even been, would he be in the top 16 1 year from now? And I think this was around the World Match Play last year. And I did say that he had the chance, but he needed to start getting results on television. Well, no, he really didn't. He just needed to keep doing what he was doing. And that was being one of the best players in the world week in, week out. And even without a real deep run in a televised event, he has climbed up to number 21. And he's only about 50,000 pounds, a little more than 50,000 pounds outside the top 16 as things currently stand, without having had that huge televised breakthrough. And you expect every single Pro Tour weekend he's going to have a deep run. Every single Euro Tour he's going to be in the latter stages. And he's obviously qualifying for all the televised events. So top 16 after the World Match Play, it's not a guarantee, but it's absolutely in the realm of possibility, and it wouldn't be surprising at all, which means I was wrong, because I said he had a chance, but I thought he'd be, around 24th. He's already ahead of that, and he looks a lot better than his ranking. That's why for over a year now, he's been in and around the top 10 of the Darts Oracle rankings for current form. Occasionally drops out of it, sometimes moves a little bit higher, but has been around number 10 for over a year now because he's been one of the top 10 players. Will he be top 10 at the end of the year? Well, I'm going to go back to what I said last year. He's going to need to have that real big breakthrough in a televised event. He's going to have to make a final of a televised event or a pair of semifinals of the big majors to get into the top 10, because there's just too much prize money on offer in those events. And if you don't have that breakthrough, you won't get there. Look at, Joe Cullen for comparison. He's just outside the top 10, but he still hasn't had a final in a ranking major. He's been dominant on the Pro Tour. He's been almost as dominant on the Euro Tour. Now, he looks like a player who will be in the top 10 sooner rather than later. But until you have that big breakthrough, a final in a major, a pair of quite a few semis, it's going to be tough. He still needs to do that to become a top 10 player, but I think he's on the cusp. He's right around where Ryan Searle was a year ago as the next player to break through. Granted, we've said that about other players who never did. Krzysztof Ratajski still has never made a major final. Ian White, of course, for years was that next player, never did. So it could never come to be, but it would be really surprising with how dominant he has been at times. And even when he's not, even when he goes against someone who is looking like the best player in the world, like Gary Anderson was on the Saturday, he still lifts his game and beats him and creates chances and takes chances. And that's why he lifted the title. I think he'll be in the top 16 before the end of the year. And if this is the year that the breakthrough comes, he'll be in the top 10. And that's where he deserves to be.
Yeah, it feels like in these early weeks of the season that this could be the season for Damon Heta, where he realises that potential that I guess a lot of people saw in him after that World Series win in Brisbane back in 2019, and when he got his tour card at Q School. A lot of people were saying this is a player that we'd expect to get in the top 32, maybe even the top 16. And we've seen over the last few years some of the performances that he's put in. This past weekend is a prime example of it, that he is one of the best players in the world. You'd put him in that top 16 on current ability right now, and he's not far away from being in it on the Order of Merit. And just looking at how the poll's going at the moment, this poll's going to be open for the rest of the week. So go and have a vote if you haven't already. But 1 to 8 is 3%, 9 to 12, 33%, 13 to 16. This is where the majority are going, 51%, and then 17 or below going with 13%. And Damon's title on Saturday, hard to believe really that it was his first title since September 2020, and that was the Autumn Series. That was only the second in-person event that Damon had since the lockdown. Of course, when the first lockdown came, he went back to Australia and he came back, missed the summer series, didn't get in the world match play. He could already be a top 16 player right now, but I think he will be in that top 16 at some point this year. Like you say, I think a lot could depend on how he gets on in these major events. It feels like he is building up to have that big run in one of the major events. He's had a few quarterfinals now. He had a couple of quarterfinals in his first season. A few weeks ago, he had that quarterfinal at the UK Open, and you're going to hear from him a little bit later, but I spoke to him about what a Saturday he had in Minehead, beating Michael van Gerwen, then beating Johnny Clayton, two of the big four or big five players in the world right now, beating them on the same day in a major event. That is an impressive feat, and he's had a lot of great achievements so far this year. The title, of course, and the way he did it. You mentioned the win against Gary Anderson with the 107 average. It was such a quality final. If you can, go and find it on YouTube. It was definitely worth a watch. Damon Heta is an incredible talent, and it looks like he is putting it all together now. He is making those strides towards the top 16. Top 8, I think that is going to be a push. He's going to have to get to a final or win one of these major events this year. But the way he's heading, he's ticking off these milestones. He's picking up titles again. He's beating these top names on TV now, which he hasn't probably done since that World Series win. So, yeah, I think he's heading that way, and I'm going with the majority. I think he will be in that top 16 come the end of the season.
Now let's talk, though, about the other player to win on the weekend. Of course, Jim Williams in his first year as a tour card holder and just his fourth weekend of Players' Championship events picks up his first PDC title. Sorry, third weekend of Players' Championship events, picked up his first PDC senior title, winning Players' Championship 6. But it puts him in contention for the match play, puts him in the provisional spots for the Grand Prix. Do you think he'll qualify for either or maybe even both this year?
Looking at how the voting on our poll on Twitter is going at the moment, a lot of our listeners don't really know which way to go. It's kind of weird how the voting's going at the moment. 17% saying that Jim Williams will get in the World Match Play, 24% saying that he won't get in the World Match Play, but he will get in the World Grand Prix, 29% saying he's going to make both, 30% saying that he's going to make none. So pretty much the same percentage saying he's going to make both or none. So I don't think our listeners are quite sure at the moment. But I think what you can say from the weekend and winning that title is he is a live contender, isn't he? He's put himself in the mix, as you say. He's in the spots for the Grand Prix at the moment. The World Match Play, he's a little bit off, but he's right in contention for that as well. So the title was definitely giving him a shot. And I was just looking at the run that he had on Sunday to the title, and he's pulled off some remarkable legs to come back in games. He was 4-2 down against Andrew Gilden in the third round, runs off legs in, I think it was 13, 10, 16, and then lost the next leg, wins the decider in 15 darts to win that one 6-5. And then in the last 16, I think it was against Scott Williams, survives the match darts, but comes through in, I think it was 14 and 15 darts in that one. And then the semi-final against Martin Schindler, how he's come through that one. He was behind in that one. And then the final, I mean, it was a 25 dart leg to win your first PDC title. I don't think he'll mind how many darts it took for him to win that final leg, because he was the one that took the chance. Ricky Evans had the chance to take it to a decider, didn't quite do it. Jim Williams using all that experience that he's had, and he's someone that's come over to the PDC with a lot of experience from that time in the BDO, making a world final, winning the world trophy, all those other titles that he's picked up in the BDO. You felt like he's a player that is capable of going on deep runs on the Pro Tour, getting in the top 64, maybe in that first year. But we've seen in the past, to get to the world match play in your first year, that's quite an achievement. That is something that we don't see many players do, because they are up against it with the prize money from the previous year that a lot of players have got going into that race at the start of the new season. So the world match play, I think, is probably going to be a step too far for him. The World Grand Prix, I think he's got a genuine shot. And one thing we should mention as well is that he's not going to be in Niedenhausen this weekend, and there are a lot of players that are going to be missing in the Pro Tour this weekend. I think the 30th spot, Bergh Van Peer's brother has got a call up for it. He's 30th on the Challenge Tour. He's got a call up for it. So that tells you how many players are missing this weekend. And Jim Williams, he's already got other commitments. He started his business during the lockdown. He's committing to that, and that could be a factor as well. How many events are we going to see him miss? Because that could prove to be the difference. I think these races are going to be tight this year. There are a lot more events in the run-up to the World Match Play, the World Grand Prix. I think we've got 17 Players' Championships, 10 European Tours before the World Grand Prix. So there's going to be a lot more prize money to play for. And with that, I think we are going to see a tighter race. So hopefully Jim will be able to commit to as much events as possible and give himself a real shot, because certainly getting the title, getting the prize money that a title brings, has given himself a real shot to get to the World Grand Prix. And if he can commit to a lot more, definitely the World Match Play could be potentially for him as well.
Yeah, and I'll start with the World Match Play, because if he gets into the World Match Play, with the way it works and the fact that nothing will drop off his ranking before the World Grand Prix, it would be very surprising if he didn't also get to the World Grand Prix. But as things stand, he's only 1,250 pounds. That's 2 wins in a Players' Championship event behind the 2 players tied for the last 2 spots, Adrian Lewis and Ross Smith. Ross Smith has regressed significantly this year. Adrian Lewis has been, inconsistent like he's been for the last few years, and that's why he's in and about for the qualification spot. Simon Whitlock is the only other person outside that's just ahead of Jim Williams as things stand. And Whitlock has been playing much better this year than he has for the last couple of years. And it seems like, just another renaissance in a career that has had quite a few of them for the Wizard. But for Jim Williams, he's already in with a chance, and he's right there in the race. And if you look, I mentioned the Darts Oracle rankings in the last question, I'll mention them again. He's currently 29th in those. If you think that the top 32 players are the 32 who should play in the World Match Play, he's there right now. And he's second, just 2 points off, 1 spot in the rankings off of being the highest ranked of the new tour card holders. The only one ahead of him is Josh Rock, who we haven't talked much about, but we will, because he's been phenomenal. Even though he's not getting results so far, he is playing at a world-class standard. That's the only player currently ranked ahead of Jim Williams of the new crew. The next highest ranked is Cameron Menzies, down to 37th. So Jim Williams is playing at a very good standard, and now he has the confidence of a title. If he can kick on from here, he will get to the World Match Play, and he will get to the World Grand Prix. But as you said, the question is, how many events is he going to have to miss because of his business? And that's something that only he knows for sure. Obviously, you'll hear from Mac Elkin in a little bit, and we'll touch on that with Mac. But that will be the big question for Jim Williams. But there's a lot of players for the picking. As I said, Ross Smith and Adrian Lewis. Ricky Evans, who he beat in the finals, is the next ahead of him. Ricky Evans hadn't done anything this year before making that final, but maybe he's coming back into form. And also within catching distance, Brendan Dolan. Brendan Dolan hadn't won a match in the Players' Championship events until Sunday, when he won a couple before losing to Josh Rock, of course. But Brendan Dolan's really been struggling this year. And even Mensur Suljovic isn't that far ahead of them. And Suljovic has had some good performances, but has had some really, really poor ones, and seems like he's in a world of hurt right now. So there's a lot of players ahead of Jim Williams who Jim Williams unquestionably is playing better than and will have a chance to catch. So if he plays enough events and if he keeps performing at a top 32 level, I think he'll get to the World Match Play and therefore the World Grand Prix. But that question then becomes, how many Euro Tour events will he not even be able to enter? And there's just so much prize money on the line there that you cannot afford to miss those, especially if you're also not even trying to qualify for them. So a lot of questions, but Jim Williams absolutely is in with a good chance for the World Match Play, and obviously the World Grand Prix, as well he should be.
And now we'll move on to our first guest on the show. Here's our chat with Australians #1 and the winner of Saturday's Players' Championship, Damon Heta. I'm pleased to say we're joined by the winner of Saturday's Players' Championship in Barnsley, Damon Heta. Thanks for the time, Damon. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Happy to be on.
Great to have you back on, and there is only one place to start, and that's with the weekend just gone, back in the winner's circle, winning Saturday's Players' Championship. How good was it to be back winning a tournament in the PDC again?
Yeah, I think it was just a little time waiting. I think playing some consistent good stuff over the last 18 months or so, and then those. The last 4 finals that I lost in, you know what I mean? I was just happy to finally get over the line again.
Well, we'll come back to the weekend, but let's first circle back to when we last spoke, just before your World Match Play debut last summer. You were up against Michael van Gerwen on that Monday night. The first session with a full crowd back in the UK, although the result didn't go your way. What was that night like at the Winter Gardens?
Yeah, it was definitely a different experience. Obviously, my first time there, even just as a player or a fan, you know what I mean. That was my first time, so I think I did all right. But I think that was just a big learning curve for myself. So, and I'll be definitely a bit hungrier this time, knowing what's going on. Definitely looking forward to the match play this year.
Later that summer, we sadly lost Carl Anderson, and you and Mac Elkin kindly accepted the Darts Shirt and Legend Awards on his behalf for our awards at the end of the year. A few weeks after Carl's passing, you and Simon Whitlock, you were representing Australia at the World Cup. What was that weekend like? I think you said in one of your interviews you felt like you played with Carl in the World Cup that weekend.
Yeah, it was a massive, it just felt like a long period of time really at the time, because it was obviously the darts was going on, the travelling issues that I was having because I wasn't fully vaccinated, and then we had all these different dart comps on. So it was just, my mind was a bit all over the shop, to be honest. All I was more worried about is Kyle and his family, and just doing as much as I could for them. You know what I mean? That was the big thing, and the darts, whatever happened in the darts happened. I wasn't playing with a bit of emotion, you could say. So I think I just really wanted to obviously the World Cup and stuff. Just really wanted to win every game so much, and it was a difficult time.
Back to you, and you broke into the top 32 towards the end of last year. You got in the seeds for Ali Pali for the first time. You were 2 sets up against Peter Wright in the third round. He goes and wins 4 straight sets to beat you. How did you reflect on that game as you left Ali Pali? Did you feel like you let it slip away, or was Peter too strong at the end there?
Oh, he was pretty. He played upped his game like a ridiculous amount, and it was just like the Players' Championship. I think I played Peter Wright there, and and I was starting to get the better of him. But the thing is, I just plateaued at a level and didn't raise my game at all. I couldn't find anything to raise or match, or where I probably should have. So it's something that I felt I've been working on. I don't know, as of late, to find that game when the chips are down, or when someone's on a roll, you got to stop the rot. So I'm thinking I'm finding myself in a game where I can do that now, and just getting that confidence.
And the World Championship is such a long event. There's a long break from then until the new season starts. Are you someone that will then watch the rest of the tournament? What's it like after? Do you tune in, or do you try and switch off from it?
No, I'm always watching the darts. I can't help but watch. It's and not only that, we have that break straight after the Worlds, and it's a decent break. That's obviously the plan to like a good timing to go home and travel back home. But obviously, I couldn't do that at the time. So I had Ben Robb over, and Hope I was over, and all that. So all I did, my mind was on the board, and I kept on playing. I didn't even have a break. You know what I mean? I was practicing and stuff. So everything's all about the darts for me.
Let's get on to this season, and a promising start on the floor even before last weekend, a semi-final and a final the first 2 weekends. Heading into the UK Open, it's a tough event with that open draw, but how were you feeling about your form going in?
Oh, definitely. My form was steady. It's something that I've maintained a high level, and that's always been my goal, is to play a consistent high level. It's always that's a big goal of mine, is the consistency, and that'll get you through like more games to win than lose. So looking at the UK Open, one of the biggest things for me was just to actually win the first game. That was the thing, because I haven't won there before at the UK Open. So getting that first win was just such a big relief, and everything else after that was it felt like everything was just a bonus for me after that. Never really thought of like being a favourite to win it or anything like that. Just it was all about that first game.
You definitely got off the mark that weekend, and for many of us it was the first time we heard your new walk-on song, switching from We Will Rock You to Things Can Only Get Better, or that should be Things Can Only Get Better. Was that the main reason behind the change, or did you just fancy something different?
Yeah, pretty much. I had I remember at the match play last year, and it was the crowd, a bit of a crowd there was singing it, and not only that, it was every commentating of Paul Nicholson, he kept chucking it in there, so it just felt only sort of natural just to run along with it. You know what I mean? So who am I to deny the people?
Man, well, back to the Okian, and not many players could have had a better Saturday that weekend in mine. They'd beating Michael van Gerwen and then Johnny Clayton on the same day. Firstly, the win against Michael, how much did that win mean to you, especially the way you did it, averaging 102 and winning 10-4?
Yeah, I think just doing it on the main stage now, you know what I mean? That was like sort of a next level for me to finally, finally get over a main stage win over like a Premier League player or a top four player or something, because I seem to run into them at them stages in most tournaments, and I got to get over that line early, you know what I mean? Not in the later stages, but just I'm always running into them early, so I've got to take my chances then, and I felt I was really comfortable on doing that, and probably coming off the weekend, the week before that in the Pro Tours, I got the best of him there, so. It wasn't really me versus Bergh as such. I didn't see it as that. I just felt like I'm just going to play my own game, and it's more pressure on him to beat me rather than the other way around.
And you're still relatively new to the PDC circuit. This is your third season now, but getting a win against Michael like that, how do you come down from a high like that win in the afternoon and then bring yourself back up for the evening to play again?
Yeah, that's a big learning curve for myself, not being in that situation. In many times in my career so far. So, that's something I've got to learn to do is, get my preparation right after playing a day session and then play the night session. And I handled it well, I think, just coming into the next day, you know what I mean? I think that's another learning curve. I didn't turn up on the Sunday, so, I'm just still figuring things out.
Well, the win against Johnny Clayton, we've got to mention 8-all. He sat on 36. You pull off one of the checkouts of the year with the 120 tops to hold. Then you break to win 10-8. We all remember those two 164s on the way to that World Series win. But how highly does that 100 rank?
Yeah, it's right up there. No way about that. I don't know. I think the 164s might be a little bit better, but definitely I'll take that every day of the week. I was in 2-3 minds of what to do just because I had an ugly first start. But happier I went that way, obviously.
Great finish. And that win put you above Simon Whitlock as the new Australian number one in the PDC, a position that not many have held before. What does that win mean to you? What was the reaction like back home when you become the Australian number one?
Yeah, it wasn't massive. I think, I didn't really know till like the next day and whatever. But, I mean, it's nice just to be, Australia's number one since, Simon's been there for like forever. So, hopefully, I can just continue on and, if not do better than what Simon's done. I mean, I'll have to be in the game for a while to do that, I think.
Well, as you mentioned, you lost out on the Sunday to the eventual champion, Danny Noppert. How disappointed were you after that one? Because after the day that you had on Saturday, I'm sure like many watching, they would have fancied you to potentially go all the way on that Sunday.
Yeah, it's definitely just frustrating. That's pretty much it. Like I know how, like even on a bad day, I normally can still pull out some stops, or if I'm in a scrappy game, I know like I just feel I can always dig it out with the best of them. But I don't know. I just was flat, and it just nothing was going for me. And I think you're going to get those days. I just happened to have it in one of the most important times so far. So. Yeah, I know. It's all it is, back to the practice board and just learn and move on and not be too disheartened. So, I mean, I got more positives to take out from that than I do negatives.
Definitely. And as we mentioned at the start, it was only a few weeks later you were celebrating with a title, winning the Players' Championship on Saturday. You mentioned in your interview afterwards, before the final, your wife had said how well Gary Anderson was playing. Has she always been a keen follower of darts, or was it for you where her interest came from?
No, it's definitely me. She wasn't... not the like even on the Australian circuit, she just never came with me or anything like that. I was just doing my own thing, get the darts, and then once we've come here, it was all business, and so there's 100% she jumps on board, and I couldn't see myself doing it without her. That's for sure. So I owe a lot to her for sure.
Well, she gave you the warning, and you turned up for that final, definitely with the 107 average. Gary himself. A 103 average. I don't think there was a leg longer than 15 darts. To come through a game like that, how much confidence and belief does it give you heading into the next events coming up?
Yeah, it's a massive boost, especially like just getting that win because of the weekend before. It was the Euro Tour and I played well there and didn't get the win. But I felt like I found that game where I needed to do, I needed to do those 10 plus averages for like 4 legs on a bounce or something just to break away the game or, get back into the game. So finding that, getting that on a regular basis, you know what I mean? Things are looking really good for myself. So as long as I can keep that up, keep my same practice routines going, because it seems like it's working. And hopefully, it'll happen in one of these big ones, you know what I mean? And come away with it.
The next day on the Sunday, we saw Jim Williams pick up his first title, and we saw on Twitter you said that you were sat with him all weekend. It must have been a lucky table. Have any of the players reached out to you? They want to sit with you this weekend?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. So we have to pick a lucky table for next weekend as well.
And away from the PDC last week, you made your local league debut in a Tuesday night league. How did that all come about? How did you find it? I think you said it was the first league that you've played in since leaving Australia.
Yeah, so the place where I'm playing at is in Ilkeston at Hogarth. I used to live across the road in the flats from there, so it was my local place from when I first came here. And I'm friends with a few of I'm friends with the players before I even got a card, you could say. So I'm just coming back here. It's like a 45-minute drive or something, and there's a few players in there, and I just really come for social, and I'm not too worried about boasting 100 averages in a local comp, you know what I mean? I'm just here for the socialism.
Good stuff. Well, speaking of Australia, the PDC recently announced it appears to be all systems go for the World Series in Australia and New Zealand this summer. The lineup's not out, but we'd imagine that you're going to get in. I know it's not Brisbane where your title was, but how much are you looking forward to playing in those events where you made your name at the top level?
Yeah, hopefully I'll get an official invite soon. I'm just looking at flights home and stuff. So I'm looking at straight after the match play. I'm going to have to miss a few tournaments just so I can go to Perth and see my family for a few weeks before, and because the calendar is just so full on. And then to play as a PDC player on the World Series back home, it gives me goosebumps. It'll be magic. I can't wait.
Fingers crossed for that. Well, lastly, as you mentioned, that the calendar's pretty stacked. You've got the World Series, hopefully the World Cup, more Euro Tours, Pro Tours, the majors. What are your main goals, I guess, for the rest of 2022 now that you have got this latest title? Is it ranking-wise, push towards the top 16? Are you more focused on winning more titles, even a major? What's the main target you've got at the moment?
Yeah, I think I've just got to. I want to stay in the top 16 on the Pro Tour order of merit. That's probably a big thing of mine. It's like they say, it's one thing getting there, but it's another thing holding on. So I've been holding on for a little while in that top 16 for I don't know, I'd say best part of a year. So to stay there for like the whole year, oh man, that'll be massive. I think that's one of my big goals. And then at they're the small goals, sorry. And then the big goal at the end is obviously try and make top 16 by the end of the year. That's the next step, and then we'll just see where we go from there. Hopefully get some deeper runs in these Euros as well. You know what I mean? I haven't even got to a quarter final yet. I think so I haven't even got there on a Euro. So that's the next step as well.
Well, wish you all the best for that. You're heading in the right direction, Damon. Congratulations again on the title at the weekend, and wish you all the best for the rest of the year.
Yeah, magic. Cheers, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to Damon for joining us now, switching attention to the Premier League. And we'll start off with Gary Anderson rolling back the years last week, winning the Premier League night in Nottingham, then making a final on the Pro Tour at the weekend. But is this just a hot streak or the start of a run perhaps to more trophies for one of the top 5 of all-timers?
Ooh, controversial addition there at the end of the question. I think he's definitely in the conversation, but he's right there. As if he is in the top 5, he's number 5. If he's not, he's number 6 or 7. But absolutely can make the argument, because at the top of his game, well, there's hard to pick 5 players who at their best are better than Gary Anderson at his best. And what we saw, not just in the Premier League, but also on the Saturday in the Players' Championship event, was Gary Anderson at his best, looking like that player from 5 years ago that won a pair of world titles, that could beat Michael van Gerwen when Michael van Gerwen was playing on his A game. Maybe not when Van Gerwen was on his A+ game, but he could beat Van Gerwen on his A game at Van Gerwen's peak. And Gary Anderson looked like that player for the first time in years. But that's the key thing, for the first time in years. And he's not shown us anything to make us think that he can reach that often enough for him to rack up a bunch of titles this year. But maybe this is the start. Maybe he's just been missing a little bit of fitness and a little bit of confidence, and certainly looked like he had both of those on Thursday and then again on Saturday. I don't want to write him off quite yet, because I wrote him off before the season started, and I think I was fair to from what I had seen. It's tough to keep someone written off when they played like that. That said, I just don't see it. I think there's too many players who can at least play at the level he played out on Thursday, even if they can't play at that 108, 109 average like he did for most of Saturday. While I think he'll get a title at some point this season, maybe multiple, I think it was just a hot streak. I think we need to see Gary Anderson, do that more often. And by more often, I mean a lot more often, before I'm going to say he's back to a player who, going into every event, is a legitimate chance for the title. He could be, but I'm not going to say it yet, because it just looks like a hot streak. Other players have had hot streaks like that before, but there's a difference between having a good week and doing like what Johnny Clayton did last year and sustaining that for months on end and therefore winning titles. Gary Anderson needs to sustain that, because sure, he can win a title with a week like that, but he needs to be able to do that more often to really pick up the trophies and to really be a favorite like he used to be.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And you could probably say Johnny Clayton had a hot year last year, the way he racked up all those titles. Gary Anderson last week definitely having that hot week, winning the Premier League night in Nottingham, then making the final and just being edged out by Damon Heta in that final. But fair play to Gary Anderson, because think back to this time last week, we were making our picks for the Premier League. One of the quarterfinals was Gary Anderson against Johnny Clayton, and neither of us were giving Gary Anderson much of a sniff in that game. I think the pencils were being sharpened as far as Gary Anderson's, career, but as far as his chances of doing well in this Premier League. I think it was an 85 average the week before, lost out in the first game, and he was bottom of the Premier League coming into that week last week in Nottingham. Wins the night, and suddenly, all of a sudden, this is how the new Premier League format works. He's right in the mix for the playoffs now. I think he's only a couple of points off that fourth spot. So it shows you that what a run can do in a night in the Premier League. You pick up those 5 points for winning the night, you're back in contention again, and every credit to him, the way he was able to come through that night. Okay, the first game against Johnny Clayton didn't set the world alight, 89 average, but still 6 out of 11 on the doubles, and that was something that was quite key for Gary Anderson in the win against Peter Wright as well. 6 out of 9, he had 4 180s, 6-3 win against Peter Wright. And then the final, got off to such a good start in that final. We looked like he was going to average nearer the 110 mark in that. Just fell off a little bit towards the end, but got over the line 6-4 against Michael Smith, 5 180s, 6 out of 13 on the doubles. So still the double percentage was high for Gary. And at the weekend as well, what a run of performances he put together. I think there was a 108, a 106, a 113, 103 in the final, just falling short, as I mentioned. But the following day, losing with a 79 average in the first round. So it's hard to say whether this hot streak has already come to an end or that was just an off day for him after the run that he had on the Saturday. But for someone that says they don't practice anymore, or they very rarely practice, you've got to remember that Gary Anderson is still one of the most naturally gifted players that we've ever seen in the game. And the throw, when it's on song, it just looks effortless. It looks so easy on the eye. But as we're seeing over the last few years, he is someone that has gone from winning world titles, being in major finals, picking up majors, to someone that, okay, he's got to a couple of major finals in the last 2 years, but for large parts of the season, he's someone that we don't really talk too much about when we're talking about contenders for majors. So, yeah, like you, I think we need to see a bit more. If we're talking in 2 months' time and Gary Anderson is in the top 4, he's won a few nights and he's kept this level going and he's in the playoffs, then, yeah, I think we can start to say that he's back in amongst the mix. But I think 1 week is probably a little bit too early to say that he is back and he is going to be challenging for all the silverware again.
Well, no silverware on offer on Premier League Night 7 at the Rotterdam Ahoy Arena in Rotterdam, but it will push these players a little bit closer towards that silverware as the season approaches halfway. Let's give our picks, though. As always, 4 quarterfinals, and we'll start out by Peter Wright, who is in second at the table after 6 nights, just 2 points adrift from Michael Van Gerwen going against James Wade, who after a hot start and being in the playoffs for the first few nights is down in 7th. How do you see this one?
Yeah, this is a hard one to call for me because I think both players are coming into this not in the best of form. I think James Wade has been a little bit hot and cold in recent times. We've seen him last week average 102 and lose 6-1. He went crazy on the 180s last week, but he only had one leg to show for it. And then we've seen in previous weeks where the average is perhaps 10 points lower in the low 90s, and he's pushed Michael Van Gerwen all the way. So we don't really know what James Wade we're getting at the moment, but I probably am going to side with him on this occasion because Peter Wright didn't look too good last week in the Premier League, and we saw at the weekend lost in the first round in both Players' Championship events, and now we are back to the regular 2 Players' Championship events in a weekend. The last time he did that, lost in the first round of both, Saturday and Sunday, April 2019. So it's been a long time since we've seen him do that. So for me, I'm going to give the edge just to James Wade on this one. I could see it going either way, but I'm going to go with James Wade. I'm going to go 6-4 to the machine.
I'm going to go the other way, and I think it's because obviously there was something physically wrong with Peter Wright because he had to pull out of the European Tour event now almost 2 weeks ago, and he didn't look anywhere near himself last weekend. But give it another week, and that could make the difference because, well, it wasn't long before that Peter Wright was looking like the world number 1 that he is and the world champion that he is, and maybe just another week under his belt and going to Europe where he likes to play will make a big difference for him. That said, James Wade, I mean, we don't know which James Wade we're going to get either, as you said, because it has been hot and cold for him this year. Yes, he made the semifinals of the World Championship and the quarterfinal of the UK Open, but in 6 Players' Championship events, he's only made 1 quarterfinal and has gone out before the board final more often than he's made it to the board final. So it is a tough match, and like you said, I could see go either way, but I think we're going to see a bounce-back performance from Peter Wright. I'll go 6-3 to the world number 1.
Second game in Rotterdam, and it is Gary Anderson, last week's winner against Joe Cullen. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, and Joe Cullen's definitely been struggling in the Premier League as of late. Obviously, he's lost his last 5 matches. Granted, he had a walkover in the first round a couple nights ago in the midst of that, but that doesn't count as a win. It's 5 consecutive matches he's played that he's been defeated. Gary Anderson comes off of, 5 consecutive losses, followed by winning the title the next night. So maybe, just maybe, that's a good sign for Joe Cullen because he's in that same position that Gary Anderson was 1 week ago. Maybe, just maybe, that means this will be Joe Cullen's week. Well, it's at least going to start that way because I'm going to go to the Rockstar to end his losing streak, and I'll go pretty convincingly at that. I'll go 6-2 to Joe Cullen.
Oh, interesting. Well, yeah, this is going to be the first test on whether last week was just a hot week for Gary Anderson or it could be the start of a big run for him. And it is a repeat of the semi-finals on the Pro Tour from Saturday. Gary Anderson winning that one 7-3 with a 104 average. And like you say, Joe Cullen, apart from that run at the weekend, looking just at the Premier League, he has been struggling in this debut season. And he said it himself on Twitter as well. He was disappointed with his performance, and it's a tough score, but he feels like he does deserve to be in the Premier League and he's going to improve. So hopefully we'll see an improved performance from him this week in Rotterdam. But I'm going to go with Gary Anderson. I'm going to go 6-3 to the player that won it last week, the player that got to the final at the weekend. And he's going to play, if my results go their way, it's going to be a James Wade, Gary Anderson semi-final.
The third match, it's the Welsh derby between Johnny Clayton, the defending champion, and Gerwyn Price, the former world number 1, currently 3rd and 4th between these two in the Premier League. How do you see this one?
Well, I can't believe that we've got to 97, and this is the first time that we've seen Johnny Clayton and Gerwyn Price play against each other. And I guess a lot of people were expecting to see it on the opening night of the season when those two opened up the night in Cardiff. Johnny Clayton beat Joe Cullen, Gerwyn Price losing out in a below par performance against James Wade, so we missed out on it on that occasion, but we have got it this week in Rotterdam. So I'm looking forward to these two playing against each other because they usually are quite good games, and the last time they played was of course the Masters. Johnny Clayton getting the better of Gerwyn Price on that occasion, 10-8. I think it's going to be Gerwyn Price's turn to get the win this time. He's going to get a bit of revenge for that one. Played pretty well against Michael Van Gerwen last week. Okay, I know he's got the injury issue at the moment, but still to average 102. Okay, it fell apart a little bit in the semi-finals, 4-0 up against Michael Smith, and he lost 6 legs in a row, but I think he gets off to a hot start again this week. I'm going to go 6-4 to go in price.
Yeah, you mentioned how they haven't met in the Premier League this year, and part of that is because they've been on the opposite side of the draw every night except for that first night in Cardiff where they were a potential semi-final matchup. Well, obviously they're going to be on the same half again in Rotterdam because they are playing each other in the first match. So it is a little bit weird how the draw worked out, that they were almost always on the opposite side. But you would have expected at some point for both of them to make the final because, well, Johnny Clayton made the final of pretty much every Sky event last year except for the World Match Play, and then at the end of the year, the World Championship. Gerwyn Price, of course, made a final of a few as well. Ooh, who's going to win this one? I'll continue the disagreement train going. Go to Johnny Clayton to beat his compatriot in a rematch of the World Grand Prix final and a rematch of many other events that they've met, but not a rematch of any Premier League match this year. They'll meet again in 8 weeks' time, but they'll probably meet again even sooner than that. But who cares? This time it's going to be the Ferret. I'll go 6-5, a last leg decider.
Final quarterfinal in Rotterdam, and it is the player that's top of the Premier League at the moment, Michael van Gerwen against Michael Smith. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, and it's so close between the two right now for world number one Michael Smith, less than £1,000 ahead of Michael van Gerwen. So van Gerwen is the world number 2 Michael as things currently stand. But there's another interesting thing going on in here in that Michael Smith, through 6 nights, has lost to the champion all 6 times, including, of course, the night Michael van Gerwen won the title, beating Michael Smith in the semifinal in Exeter on the way to lifting the mini crown. Michael Smith, a pair of runners-ups, obviously cannot have won a title since he's lost to the champion each time. I think that streak will end this night. Will it be because he wins the title? Possibly. Not going to tell you because I don't have to make that pick, but I will tell you he'll beat Michael van Gerwen. And I'll go another last leg decider, 6-5 to the world number 1 Michael.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one and the Michael Derby. For me, I think the home crowd, this being back in Rotterdam with that full crowd in the Netherlands, Michael van Gerwen doesn't get too many opportunities during the year to play in front of that home crowd, especially in an event like the Premier League. So I think the home advantage is going to give Michael the edge on this one. I think he is going to get the win. I'm going to continue that disagreement that we've had for these picks this week. So for me, I'm going to go with Michael van Gerwen to continue to be top of the table, at least after the quarterfinals. I've got him going through 6-3 on my scores.
And now we'll move on to our second interview of the night, and it's with the manager for the newest first-time winner, Jim Williams, as well as Premier League star James Wade, Mac Elkin. I'm joined today by the former Weekly Dartscast Manager of the Year, and if this past weekend is anything to go by, possibly the soon-to-be future Manager of the Year, Mac Elkin. Mac, how are you?
You know, I'm not so bad, mate, but that introduction wasn't what I wanted to hear. It was what I wanted to hear you big me up a bit more than that, not the former. Burton, come on, man.
Well, I just said you might be the future one because, well, this past week, Jim Williams won his first PDC title, beating Ricky Evans in the final. How proud of a moment was that for you to see Jim go all the way, especially so early in his career?
Immensely proud for me. It was a big moment. Obviously, I know Jim's got the talent to go all the way. To do it so soon, I maybe not have expected that. But I was watching him, and he was, as the day was going on, fatigue was setting in a little bit, and I thought, please come on, Jim, just one more. And the Michael Smith game, it was a weird game because for 3 legs, he went 3 up. And then for the next 3 legs, Michael was just world class. He was just amazing. And then Michael went off the ball again, and Jim was steady, and he managed to nick that game. And then the Schindler game, he was behind, but he was chasing and managed to come back and win that one. And then the Ricky game, he was just holding the lead, just holding. And then obviously at the very end, we had the missed double scenario from both players, which obviously was huge for both because Ricky, 5 finals, never won one. So he was feeling the pressure. Jim's first final in only 6 tournaments after becoming a professional. So you can imagine that the both players were really struggling there and feeling the pressure. But I'm immensely proud of him. He's worked hard and he's dedicated his time a bit more now, and he's showing he's such a good player.
You mentioned dedicating his time a bit more. Obviously, he's one of the players who has to balance work commitments. And obviously, since he's running his own business, that makes it even more difficult, missing the event in Germany. Do you know if he's going to miss any more events going forward, or is this title going to force him to concentrate on trying to get to the World Match Play, or is it still something up in the air?
To be honest, Burton, we spoke about this weekend, and Jim would have come if I'd have put a bit more pressure on him, but I don't like doing that. If I'd have said, Jim, you have to go, Jim would have gone, but I don't like doing that. I'd rather the players make their own mind up. In hindsight, I wish I had have done that, because obviously the entries closed before last weekend. We didn't know Jim was going to win it. So maybe it was a small mistake on my part, maybe a mistake on Jim's, but time will tell. But look, I'm not one. I've never been one for making somebody do something they don't want to, and I've always said I would never do something that I don't want a dart player to do. So if I say to a dart player, I want you to go to Germany, and he's not keen, I say, well, look, I'm making the effort. You should. But at the end of the day, it was his decision. He decided not to go, and I'll stand by his decision, regardless of whether he makes the match play or not. We'll learn from it, but I'll stand by it. Going forward, we're not looking at missing anymore. In fact, we're looking at trying to qualify for every European now.
Well, fair enough. Now, let's talk about Jim's close friend, former Premier League champion Glen Durrant. Of course, everyone knows was a very difficult 2021 for Glen on the hockey. And it's been a difficult start as well this year, but he's also now starting his own coaching service for players. How did that idea come about, and do you think it's something that could help Glen refine his own game?
Well, Glen knows exactly what's going wrong. I mean, with his throw, he's got no pullback on his arm. It stops halfway, and it's a snatch kind of thing, a flick. He knows exactly what he's doing, but in his head, he cannot bring his arm back. And it's weird, but he's very good at telling other players and other people as well. And they listen to Glen because of what he's achieved and everything. And look, at the UK Open, he played Scott Waits, lost 10-6, I think it was. And all the way through, in the 16 legs, his average was around 89, 90, solid. Didn't really go down and up and down. He was quite solid. So I've seen a lot of comeback there. And then, unfortunately, he came to the European qualifiers this week, and it didn't quite happen for him. And he was down again. But you know what? He didn't quit. He came back Saturday and Sunday. And Sunday especially, he played okay. He played all right. And at some stages, he was throwing a 93, 94 average. But then he has that one leg where the opponent takes a big score out against him and everything, and he seems to think about it. And before he can actually recover, he's 4 down or 5 down, and it's too late. But, you know, I admire the man, and whatever Glen decides to do, whether he decides to quit or carry on, he has got my 100% backing, because what that man gave me in the last 6-7 years we're together, it's now my turn to stand by him, and I've got his back all day long. So whatever he does, I'll always be there for Glen, always.
That's why you are the soon-to-be future manager of the year. Now, let's also talk James Wade, currently number 5. He's in the Premier League, made the semifinals of the World Championship, quarterfinal UK Open, and still right in the race for the playoffs in the Premier League. How has he found, though, the start to the new season so far?
Do you know, James is really enjoying himself at the moment. He's in a good place, which is fantastic. And I think that's showing with his darts. The strange thing is with James, he's now putting the scores in and the 100 averages in, but he's missing his doubles. And I mean, for 20 years, Wade relied on his doubles, and that won him title after title. So, yeah, that's going to click. Believe me, Burton, it's going to click very soon. And when it does, he's going to win something big. Really, I'm watching him, and honestly, he's hitting 180s for fun, 140s consistently. He's really enjoying himself at the moment. Like, we've just landed in Rotterdam now, well, in Amsterdam, and then got a cab to Rotterdam. And he's in a great place. He's laughing, he's joking. The old way, the moans, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. We go in 6 o'clock on Friday morning, back to Amsterdam, flying to Germany to play in the Pro Tours. You know, he's really, and he's enjoying it. He's enjoying the lifestyle at the moment, so it's all good. Maybe it's down to me, I don't know, but for the last 16, 18 months, he's been in a great place and he's getting better and better.
And of course, Jose and Dimitri, want to mention the Premier League cutting back from 10 to 8 players. Obviously, Jose making the finals last year, Dimitri playing fantastic on debut, but just missing out on the playoffs. Were you surprised, though, at the switch to 10 to 8 players? And when they announced that, did that give you a feeling that they might be the two to miss out?
Surprised? No. Disappointed? Very. So I have my own opinions on the players that were picked. I'm not gonna state my opinion because I've got friends, obviously, and you know, I think Dimitri done more than some players. I was told Dimitri wasn't in the Premier League because he didn't achieve enough over the year, and the players that were picked achieved more than Dimitri. Yet Dimitri got to 2 TV finals, the World Match Play and the World Series. He had a bad Worlds. Well, did he? It's 100 plus average. The guy he played against hit every double he could. Did not miss. I think he had a 78% ratio on his doubles. So I don't know. Out of the two, I think Dimitri was really unlucky. I understand that the Jose thing. Yes, he got to the final. He was playing great, and his form dipped a little bit. So maybe when you talk about the 8, maybe I understand that Jose may not have made it, but I think Dimmy should have. But then if you talk about the 10, then I think they both should have. But then, listen, Rob Cross won the European Championship, didn't get in. There's players in that Premier League that won absolutely nothing last year and got in. So, listen, I don't pick it. And at the moment, they've got 8 absolutely outstanding players that put a show on every week. People like Gary Anderson, he can't be bothered, this, that and the other. Then last week he goes out and he was just winning for fun. And on the Saturday at the Pro Tour, 100 plus averages, it was the old Gary, great to watch. That's the Gary I love to watch. I don't love to watch him against my players, of course. I want him to have a 79 average and leave, but so pick who they want, and the players who want perform, and if they perform, then the PDC have won.
No, one more question on Demi. Obviously, we saw him move to England to live with Damon Heta and also became a dad for the first time. How is Dimitri finding life away from home and being a parent for the first time?
Okay, so, yes, he has a house in Leicester with Damon, but when Ivy had the baby in December, Dimitri went back after the Worlds, and they are still in Belgium at the moment, so he's commuting from Belgium again. He's not living in Leicester. Although the house is still there. He's put his application in for the visa. It's been granted, so he's got his sports visa, so he can now live in England with no bother. So basically, I think he's just waiting for Ivy and the baby to get there. The baby can't travel at the moment, we've been waiting for the passport. But as soon as that's all sorted, he will be moving back to Leicester ASAP. So the answer to your question is, at the moment, he's commuting from Belgium.
Fair enough. And let's talk about a couple players who had to go to Q school but won their card. Ted Evans and Kevin Doets. Ted, of course, only won the World Youth title last year and has won his tour card before. For Kevin, it's the first time. What have you made, though, so far? Well, first, Ted winning the World Youth title, but then also Kevin of his start on the Pro Tour.
Yeah, so Ted, obviously, it was great for him to win the World Youth because it was his final year. He's had so many misses, and he got beat twice by Dimitri. Dimitri went on to win it. He got beat by Corey Cadby. Corey went on to win it. The semi-finals, he got beaten twice, I think, and quarter-final against Dimmy. So he's had a tough run, and this year he got there and he played brilliant. He actually beat Kevin in the semi-final, and I've never seen Kevin so disappointed. Played great all day, Kevin, and just didn't turn up for the semi-final. But then Ted went on and beat Nathan Rafferty, another outstanding young player who I absolutely admire. So yeah, for Ted it was great, and then going to Q School, winning his tour card back, it was brilliant. To be honest, Ted was quite confident of going after that, winning the World Youth. He was full of confidence. His game had gone up another level again, and he was throwing great. Kevin, I think there was a lot more pressure on because he played a lot of the Pro Tours and won his first round all the time, as good as. He was picking money up, so there was a lot more pressure on him. And Kevin had 2 good days, which got him enough points to get his tour card. So that was brilliant. He made 2 semi-finals, I think it was. That got him enough points, and that got him his tour card. And then the start of the year, Kevin's played well. It was only this weekend, is the first weekend, where he didn't pick anything up. But he got beat with Martin Schindler beat him. I think Kevin had 104 average, and Martin had 112 average. The game was insane. And these are youth players as such. It was fantastic. And the day after, he lost 6-5 to Jason Heaver, I think it was. And last leg, Jason went out in, I think it was 11 darts with back-to-back 180. So, he's doing the business. So we're really happy at the moment with Kevin. Ted's been quite ill, which isn't very well documented. He's been quite ill. He's been going to the doctors. That's why he pulled out the European, just 2 weeks ago, I think it was. He's been sick and can't hold his food down, but he's still been turning up to the UK tournaments and having a go. So we're expecting Ted. Hopefully he gets it all sorted and we find out what it is, and then he can concentrate on his darts. But at the moment, it's a very worrying time for Ted. So I'll give him his due that he's turning up and playing. But he's got a good 18 months still left on his tour card. So we've got no worries. We're quite confident Ted will do okay.
And obviously there's a lot of other players that we can discuss, but we don't have all day. But we'll leave with one more question, since the Lakeside World Championships is coming up in just 2 weeks' time. And you'll have a player in the field in the 8th ladies seed, Lorraine Winstanley, a former world master. How good is it, though, to have the Ladies World Championship back and after a couple years without it? And how's Lorraine feeling about her chances going to the Lakeside?
To be honest, I haven't really spoken a lot to Lorraine at the moment, but it's fantastic to have the Ladies Darts Championship back. Of course it is. And what Fallon and Lisa have done for Ladies Darts have properly put it on the map. Unfortunately, I heard the other day that Fallon's getting a lot of stick about being asked to play in the WDF World Championship, so she's now withdrawn, which is a shame. Because obviously she would have been one of the favourites. But then it opened it up for the other ladies. I also look after a lady called Natalie Gilbert that didn't make it, but believe me, she's going to be a star. She's local to me, just 10 minutes down the road from me. She's fantastic. So, yeah, I think the ladies' game will take off again. The PDC are backing it with the ladies' series, and then obviously you've got the ladies' World Match Play and such. So it's exciting times for darts in general, not just the men or the ladies, for the youth, for everybody. It's exciting times. It's really good to be in darts at the moment. And I'm loving it, Burton. I'm loving it.
Well, Mac, thank you so much for your time, and congrats again on Jim's first title, and good luck as the season continues to truck along.
Burton, thank you for your time. And we haven't seen each other for a few years. So it's about time you made your way over to England and come and brought me some dinner. Nice English fish and chips will do, mate.
Thanks to Mac for joining us on this week's show, and we'll finish off with a trio of listener questions. Granted, I'm only going to answer 2 of them because I guess I could take a guess how to answer the third one, but I think, Alex, I'll leave that one to you. But we'll start. This question comes from Richard. He sent it in a couple weeks ago. We didn't have time to address it last week, but we'll address it now. Should the Euro Tour continue using the shortened version of In the Air Tonight before finals, or should they change to the full version? Richard adds that he himself is always finds himself getting into it, and then all of a sudden they cut off to start the event.
Yeah, we definitely had to get this question in, didn't we? And it's become a iconic song on the European Tour. I think when you look through a wish list, a bucket list for a darts fans, you've got on there to go to the Winter Gardens for the World Match Play, to go to the Lakeside. I'd have on there to go to the UK Open for the first session in Minehead. And I'd also add on there to be at a Euro Tour for that final session for the final when this song comes on, because it should give the players goosebumps. It's a little different to having Sweet Caroline. You'd probably hear it in the crowd, or you'd hear one for the darting nerd. He likes the Money Barn advert, the song that goes on that. He said that he'd have it as his walk on, but In the Air Tonight, it's become a classic song, and hopefully one day I'll get to be at a Euro Tour and hear it in person. But yeah, for me, let's go with the full version. I want to hear more of it.
I like how they do it. I mean, part of what makes it iconic is that it is just, that minute and a half of it as opposed to the full song. Maybe it would work with the full version, but why mess with something that is perfection? Granted, it wouldn't be the first time the Euro Tour has messed with perfection, because you go back to, 2016, the entire Euro Tour playlist, including, of course, at the start of play, the 180 song, was the greatest playlist in world sports. And every year they make a few changes, and I like it so far this year, after a couple of years where I thought they were getting too many English language songs in. Take Me Home Country Road should be part of it, but that should be the only English language song, which for some reason is very big in Germany. I don't know why, but apparently it is. But the Euro Tour playlist and music is one of the iconic things, and the In the Air Tonight right before the final is part of that and helped build the mood for what is often one of the best darts matches of the year. And one of the biggest because of how much prize money is on the line and what it could mean for someone's career. Look, wasn't that long ago that it got Jamie Hughes into the World Match Play and the World Grand Prix at the final hurdle from nowhere, like winning the final. So that music is the introduction to what is really an underrated and underappreciatedly important match in the overall calendar of world darts. And there's 13 of them each year. So no, I wouldn't change it, because why mess with something that just works?
I wonder if anyone's had that for their walk-on song as well. I'll have to have a think about that. But next question comes from Russ Barber, who says, will everyone win a night in the Premier League? What do you reckon?
That's a tricky question, and I like that we're addressing it now. 7 nights in, 5 people. So 6 nights in, 5 people have already won one. Only Michael Van Gerwen has won 2, and no one has made even more than 2 finals. Van Gerwen has won both of his. Wright and Clayton have split their 2 finals, and Michael Smith has been runner-up the last 2 nights. So only 3 people still have not won it. Smith, obviously, as well as Wade and Cullen. From what we've seen so far, you wouldn't think Joe Cullen would win one, but Joe Cullen is obviously capable, more than capable, not just to win one, but to rattle off 2 or 3 before things are done. So is James Wade, and you just heard from Mac earlier that he thinks Wade his doubling's been off a little this year, but his scoring is up significantly. Once his doubling gets back to his normal form, he's going to be tough to beat. And obviously, Michael Smith is a world finalist. He's been the runner-up in a pair of these. He lost to the winner on all 6 nights. It would be very, very surprising if he doesn't win at least one before it's all said and done. So I'm going to say yes. With 10 nights to go, I think all 3 of those who have yet to win one will win at least one, if not more than one. So I'll go yes. I'm ready to be wrong, because the 5 that have won it have had to play at a very high standard. And if they play it that night in, night out, it's going to be tough to knock them off.
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? And I'll go the other way, because this seems to have been the episode where we've had our most disagreement so far. So for me, I'm going to go the other way. I think there will be maybe 1, maybe 2 of the players that don't win a night. And for me, the way I'm looking at it now is that we have got 10 nights left of the regular season. I guess when we get towards the end of the season, the players will be having more of a close eye on the playoffs, the table as it is. I don't think many people have looked at it too much in these first 6 weeks of the season. But when you get to that crunch end of the season with the points on offer, I think we are going to see the players that are at the top of the table, the players, the big 4, if you like. I think we are going to see them win most of the titles when there's more points to play for, and they're going to cement those spots in the playoffs. So for me, I'm probably looking at maybe 1 or 2 of them not getting a title, and these are hard things to win. I mean, you look at it, you've got to win 3 games in a night. You might get a fortunate draw. Maybe someone doesn't turn up for their quarterfinal, but when you get to the semi-final and the final, you are expecting to play someone with that higher average, a 9,500 average, so that the players that haven't perhaps got one yet, they are going to have to turn it on for 2, possibly 3 games in a night. And at the moment, the way the form's going, I think there's 1 or 2 in there. Probably looking at Joe Cullen at the moment that aren't quite going to get over the line, but still a long way to go. 10 nights to go. They've all got a shot. But for me, I'll go the other way. I'll say that there might be 1 or 2 that miss out.
And our last listener question comes from Andrew Sinclair, who, of course, will be the second person to challenge you in a podcast darts competition for another podcast. Granted, well, I guess this is a cross podcast one. He asked, "How's your prep going for the big clash at the Lakeside in a week and a half?"
Yeah, well, obviously Andrew hasn't watched my game with Matthew Keenan in Bristol a few weeks ago when we made the trip to the UK Open. And 48 average, I was quite happy with that, actually. I think back to our games that we had during the lockdown to the online darts that we were playing, and my average was in the high 30s, low 40s. So I guess there was 2 legs I didn't have a shot at a double, so that helped the average a little bit. But yeah, if I could average in the high 40s, I'll be happy with that, and I think I'll have a decent chance. But every credit to Andrew. I know he's not been playing much darts recently, but we did see him on one of the Icelandic streams. He made the trip to Iceland to get the prep in. So I think his prep's gone a lot better than mine has, and he's just put his feet up for the last few weeks. So I'm definitely going to have to get a few practice sessions in. I won't be getting on a plane anywhere, probably just having a throw at home or go down the pub. But yeah, I'll get a couple of sessions in before next week. And yeah, looking forward to that game. Should be good.
Now, anything else for this week?
Well, we have to say big thank you to our guests for joining us. Big thank you to Damon, to Mac for taking the time. Of course, our sponsor, Dartwolf. If you want some more Dynamite Darts content, head on over to dartwolf.tv, at Dartwolf180 on Twitter. Go and give Dartwolf a follow. And yeah, I mean, we've got plenty coming up. Of course, next week it is Lakeside, and we'll be bringing you our Lakeside preview. If there's any players that you want to hear from in the men's, the ladies, the boys, the girls draws that are going to be involved, then of course, get in touch with us and we'll try and bring you as many as we can. We'll try and get a stacked show for you guys to lead into Lakeside. And we'll have a few of us there. I'm going to be there for the first weekend. We'll have that game with Andrew before the tournament gets underway. Our producer, Hannah's going to be there, hopefully for the duration. Matthew Keenan, he's going to be making a cameo on the first Sunday. So looking forward to bringing you as much as we can from Lakeside, some interviews, some different bits and pieces. So yeah, keep on this feed. There'll be plenty coming over the next few weeks.
Yes, indeed. I may be missing next week's episode, unfortunately, because I have to go to California for work, and it's an 8-hour time difference between Alex, you there in England, and me when I'm in California. So we'll see if I can make it, but might have a guest co-host next week. But if not, I'll be there in spirit at least. Obviously, huge week coming up. With the Lakeside, first ever WDF Lakeside World Championships. Also, of course, some Pro Tour events to recap in Germany, as well as the Premier League as it reaches its first, the mid-season championship night. So we'll be back, even if I'm not back next week, to recap and look ahead to all of that. Until then, enjoy the darts, hang tight, and, well, it is almost the return of Dartsmas in April.